From a secret Spider-Man love interest to a really unexpected star playing Superman. Some actors got paid for the movies they weren't even in. Let's find out who these lucky folks are. Top of the list is the Captain controversy. Johnny Depp himself in Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. Remember the Depp vs. Heard defamation lawsuit? Yeah, no one's gonna forget that anytime soon. The drama, the headlines, the uproar, the gossip. It didn't just produce memes. The lawsuit actually had some serious effect on both actors' careers. For Johnny, it meant being kicked out of two major franchises. One was the Pirates of the Caribbean, and the other was the Fantastic Beasts. It didn't matter how much profit Depp gave to them both. The domestic violence allegations made him way too risky. That's kinda understandable from the production's perspective. But here's the shocking part. The Dark Shadow star didn't just walk away empty-handed from Secrets of Dumbledore. Warner Brothers gave him a half apologetic and half farewell gift. The entire salary for his role in the movie. That was $16 million, folks. Who wouldn't mind a goodbye present like that? Certainly not me. Well, it sure proves one thing. Bad press can make even a huge star lose projects. But what about the good kind of fame? Turns out you can't have too much of that too. Tobey Maguire learned that in The Life of Pi. You had a chance to witness him in that beautiful film, but director Ang Lee showed him the door. Why? 'Cause Maguire was too famous. See, even that's troubling sometimes. Lee said the OG Spidey would have overshadowed the low-profile cast. His role ultimately went to Rafe Spall. You hardly hear a lesser-known actor has replaced an A-lister. It's usually the other way around, isn't it? But another reason for the replacement made sense. So most of the audience let it slide. Ang said he was picking an entirely international cast. So apologies and best wishes for Toby. But can't have you, dude. And hear this, even the brothers' actor was okay with that. And why wouldn't he be? He still got his paycheck while doing absolutely nothing. Same thing happened to Peter Parker's MJ, but not the one you're thinking of. It's actually Shailene Woodley in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Don't remember reading her name on the cast list? Of course you didn't, 'cause Shailene's scenes got cut. She was supposed to play the iconic redhead ladylove MJ. The Divergent star had even shot 3 scenes for the movie. But those got cut in the post-production phase. What wasn't cut was Woodley's salary. Oh, she pocketed it all. After all, she did act and had to get paid for it. Scene cutting was not in her control. And you know what? In hindsight, it was actually better to exclude the MJ scenes. Let's be honest, we were way too heartbroken over Gwen's death. The audience wouldn't have accepted Mary Jane immediately after that. That just sounds cruel. But yes, new love could have bloomed in the threequel. If there was any. Still, the romance may happen again after Andrew Garfield is in the MCU. Speaking of Marvel, the Ant-Man actor's role got scrapped too, but in a whole other project. This one happened in a war alright, but between bridesmaids. Yep, I'm talking about Paul Rudd's cameo in Bridesmaid. Now that I mention it, Paul would have been so good in the movie, right? His chick flick roles are the best. Need I mention Clueless? Also, the guy's comedic timing is just classic. That's why he was supposed to do a cameo in this 2011 film. He would be a blind date for Kristen Wiig's lead Annie. Paul shot that scene too. But then, maybe the studio found it unnecessary and excluded it. Still, they paid Roll for his time and acting. Such a shame, by the way. Even without watching it, I can tell you this. The scene would have been hilarious. Hey, Universal Pictures? Now that you've even paid Paul for it, please release the scene as extra footage. It deserves to see the light of day. Just like this entire next film. About Superman, no less. Believe it or not, once Nicolas Cage was the red-capped hero in Superman Lives. It was back in the 90s. Did you know the Tim Burton was going to direct the movie? Oh yes, he was. DC's most popular superhero. The magician-like filmmaker Burton. Cage at the top of his career. It sounded like the total package to deliver a masterpiece. So what went wrong? Apparently, Hollywood politics got in the way. Warner Brothers started with concerns about the script. Then a budget cut happened. Finally, the production house announced it was putting Superman Lives on hold. And the hold continues to this day. Probably the only solid thing out of the project was Nicholas's pay. A whopping 20 mils. Whoa. Bummer he never got to star in it. You can still have a sneak peek at his version of Superman. There are plenty of Nick Cage headshots over the internet. He's donning the iconic red and blue costume, right just surging in his stance. His black locks flying in the air ever so heroically. It was never meant to be. And just like this, another vintage film missed out on having a leading star in its cast. It was Harrison Ford in E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Steven Spielberg's sci-fi flick was already out of this world. Imagine how Harrison could have added even more star power to it. He was going to have a cameo in it as a high school principal. Usually, hiring a megastar like him would be costly. But luckily for Steven, Ford was a pal. What's more, Mrs. Ford back then, Melissa Matheson, had also written the screenplay. So it was all between family and friends. The Blade Runner star went ahead and filmed a short scene. But sadly, this cameo never made the cut. Interestingly, Spielberg still paid his pal for it. Now that's a friend I would love to have. Anyway, the good news is, a version of it still exists. You can't really see Harrison's face in it, just his voice. That's because the entire movie was shot from Elliot's POV. Still, I bet Ford fans would appreciate that too. And while we're on the extraterrestrial subject, I have to talk about one more movie. Forget cameos. It didn't include one of its well-known actors, despite him being one of the leads. That unfortunate guy was Michael Biehn in Alien 3. Now this is one juicy tale. You see folks, Mike was supposed to lead the threequel, as you'd expect from one of the main characters. But maybe the production wasn't too keen on that. That's why they killed off Biehn's character Dwayne Hicks at Alien 2's ending. Much to the actor's surprise. Anyway, he moved on. Water under the bridge. Then, the crew suddenly realized that they needed Hicks for just one scene. They didn't call Michael back. Nope. Instead, they went ahead and cast a look-alike. And our guy was like, how dare they? That's just flat out wrong. He popped back up on the scene, refusing to allow it. And the studio needed Biehn's permission to imitate him. So both teams met in the middle. The Terminator actor got paid for the movie without being in it. It was never revealed how much the check was worth. But curiosity was killing me, so I had to know that. Listen to this, fellas. Word on the street is the star got close to $1 million. Getting paid for not even working? Only in Hollywood. And that wraps up our list of actors who got paid for the movies they weren't in.